Get cool stuff for what you were going to do anyway. Drink beer. With Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt, you can just snap a photo of your receipt and upload it to the website to rack up points for exclusive merch. Get points for every purchase, whether you're grabbing a pint on draft, a case for a party, or a tall boy at the stadium. Any size, any product, anywhere you buy Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Sign up now at rewards.labattusa.com.
Congrats, I got you in, baby.
This is entertainment. People pay to watch this.
Pass to a cutting hill. He darts in. Whoa!
People actually subscribe.
All across central New York.
Time expired! Syracuse has done it!
It's Drive Time with your host, Tim Leonard.
Hey, guess what? I'm getting one, man.
We welcome you into Drive Time. A Thursday in central New York. A full week of Drive Time shows. Who would have thunk it? We're here with you tomorrow as well. Had a little bit of an abbreviated show yesterday. We can go long today. We can take your phone calls. I got nowhere to be at the end of the show today. Maybe we'll go into the second hour once again if you'd like. 315-437-7644. Phone lines are open and available throughout our hour or hour plus with you today for ESPN 44. We're going to do our Top 5 Tuesday finally on a Thursday. The Top 5 Tuesday, we've had that conversation for a while of who are the top 5 candidates for Syracuse basketball's potential opening, likely opening in men's basketball. So we'll dive into my top 5 candidates. Not the most likely 5, but who are my top 5 right now? Who are the 5 guys I would give a call, I would want to interview, I would want to gauge interest in? And I spoiled my number 1 yesterday, but if you didn't listen to the show yesterday, I won't spoil it for those of you that are just tuning in today. But we will get to my Top 5 Tuesday, the top 5 candidates for the potential Syracuse men's basketball head coach opening that could be coming here this offseason and seems very likely to be coming. We had Adrian Autry on Orange Nation earlier today, and he talked about his message to the team right now is there's a team out there that's probably going to go on a run from the range that Syracuse is in. That's going to shock the world. That's going to be an unlikely run to the NCAA tournament, whether that's winning the conference tournament to get the automatic bid or coming from deep outside the at-large conversation with a couple weeks remaining in the regular season and getting there. We'll see, but he is advocating to his team that they could be that team. They have 3 quad 1 opportunities ahead of them, but of course, the writing seems to be on the wall to some extent with how the basketball season has gone, which is frustrating. So we will open up the conversation some more this afternoon to who could be the next head coach at Syracuse and who should they be looking at, and should they inquire about family candidates outside the family, that conversation that we have been having for the better part of the last month at this point. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in. And let's get it underway. It's our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive, our Top 5 Tuesday on a Thursday.
Open up the notebook and let's rank something.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
It's a Top 5 Tuesday.
All right, Top 5 Tuesday. Top 5 potential replacements for Adrian Autry. Successor to Adrian Autry, however you want to phrase it. Top 5 candidates to take Adrian Autry's job next year. And we begin with the name that I'm sure a lot of you are going to have opinions about. And this is a name that we talk about the most when it comes to callers. And it seems like you have to be on one side of the fence or the other, and you have to be very strong in your stance on this individual.
Number 5.
Number 5 for me, and again, this is not most likely, but this is just me ranking the candidates that I see out there right now. I guess I'm keeping into consideration a little bit likeliness to an extent. I'm not going to put Jay Wright on this list. I'm not going to put Bruce Pearl on this list, Tony Bennett. Obviously, you might want to give them a call or gauge interest, but it's not going to happen. So those names are not on this list. But from the realistic options, the options that are actually worth talking about, I have ranked them not on who is most likely, but how would I rank those coaches from the realistic options. And number 5 is Jerry McNamara, the current head coach at Siena. And we have laid out the case for and against Jerry many times on this show and many times on these airwaves. And I think it's pretty obvious that there are plenty of pros here. So if you are anti-GMAC, hear me out a little bit. If you're anti-hiring from a family candidate, hear me out a little bit. And you can even call in and dispute any of the points that I come up with here. Here are the pros for Jerry McNamara. He has done a very good job at Siena to this point. Now, a lot of you will point out, well, Siena is rated the number 1 job on Field of 68's anonymous poll for the MAC. It's easy to win at Siena. Siena had won 4 games before Jerry took over, and he has done a really good job building up that program. And I think he's part of the reason why they have some good resources and a talented roster. Gavin Doty is maybe the one player that would be worthwhile as a player that could translate to Syracuse. So you're not getting as much as if you hired from a Atlantic 10 coach, an American coach, a ACC coach elsewhere. You're probably not going to pull too many players from Siena that would be immediate impact players, of course, to make the jump to Syracuse. But Jerry understands the job. He understands the uniqueness of the position at Syracuse. I don't think he would cost a whole lot of money from a salary standpoint, which some of you are probably thinking, Tim, why are you bringing that up? We need the university to empty the checkbook and finally pay on the head coach. Well, if you don't spend as much money on the head coach, you could probably use some of that money elsewhere and improve the program in other areas. I think you would be very good with NIL. I think if you really want to get into the weeds, Red's first year was probably his best year. It definitely is his best year to date, is how it's trending, and Jerry was on staff that year. There is a perception out there that I hear a lot that Jerry wasn't a good recruiter at Syracuse, and I don't necessarily know if I believe that completely, but I would say that I think Jerry would bring in good players. I think that he would be good for NIL. He would engage with the boosters. He's a great speaker. He's a great basketball mind. I think very highly of Jerry McNamara. Now, the counter argument to the Jerry conversation is, to me, if you're going to go in the family, I would probably prefer Mike Hopkins. I think he's got more experience. Also, I don't know if GMAC is going to be that sought after this coaching cycle for a power conference job. And that's what a lot of you will bring up here is Jerry McNamara, if you took away the fact that he played for Syracuse, he would not be in the conversation. And that's a fair counter, but you also have to understand that the fact that he did play for Syracuse boosts his stock for Syracuse. Kansas State is not going to look at Jerry McNamara, we can confidently say. Or another power conference job that is equivalent to Syracuse is probably not that interested in Jerry. But Jerry would come here and be better for NIL at Syracuse or better for just understanding the job and have better perspective on Syracuse than another hypothetical power conference job that would be open. So that's something to consider when you're talking about Jerry McNamara. I don't want his reputation to take a hit. I don't want to see a repeat of what happened with Adrian Autry. And I feel that a lot of you have really soured on this idea. And I would love to know how many of you that are soured on the idea of Jerry McNamara as the head coach next season for Syracuse and taking over for Red. How many of you wanted GMAC when they were looking for Jim Boeheim's successor? And how many of you were advocating for GMAC over Red in that scenario? And if you answered yes to that question 3 years ago, that you wanted Jerry McNamara then, why wouldn't you want him now after he's gone to Siena and he's proven himself outside of Syracuse and he's done a very nice job there? That's the only counter I have. I don't know if that's the case for all of you. Maybe the people that were thinking outside the family then also are thinking outside the family now. I'm sure that there's a good amount of overlap there. but I don't understand why it's not at least considered. I think Jerry McNamara has a terrific basketball mind, and I think he's done a nice job at Siena, and I think he should be considered for the position. Again, I'm ranking him number 5, not number 1, but I do think he should be considered, and he should definitely take an interview, and you at least gauge his interest.
Number 4.
Number 4 is a name that I've not seen out there at all. And before I get into this, let me just say plainly that this is very unlikely. But this is not my list of most likely candidates. This is just my list of top 5 candidates right now. And in the category of someone that I would reach out to, engage interest, is a coach in the conference on the West Coast, and that is Kyle Smith at Stanford. This name is not out there at all. And Kyle Smith, to me, is one of the best coaches in the country. Definitely one of the most underrated coaches in the country. He is a Hamilton grad, and he started his head coaching career at Columbia, but he has lived on the West Coast for the better part of the last 20 years. St. Mary's is where he was an assistant. San Francisco, he did a terrific job with that program. For those that watch Florida now and love Todd Golden, he was under the Kyle Smith coaching tree. Todd Golden won a national championship at Florida last year, and Kyle Smith is known for being, amongst coaching circles, one of the smartest and most analytically savvy minds out there. Stanford is a tough place to win from a resources perspective, and he has done a pretty nice job so far in the jump to Stanford. And actually, in his 15 years as a head coach, pretty amazing when you go through his KenPom resume, 15 years as a head coach, his team has exceeded the preseason expectations on KenPom 13 of 15 years. Stanford right now is on pace to exceed expectations in the rankings from where they stood in the preseason. If they do that, this will be the 8th straight season that Kyle Smith has had his team exceed expectations. He was the head coach at Washington State, Pac-12 Coach of the Year. Washington State tried like heck to keep him. He went to Stanford. And the reason why I say it's unlikely, he has called Stanford his dream job. And even though Syracuse is unequivocally a better job than Stanford in the conference, the Field of 68 anonymous poll that we keep referencing had Stanford as the 16th best job in the conference and Syracuse the 6th best job. It seems very unlikely that Kyle Smith would be interested in going from Stanford and the West Coast and beautiful California to very, very snowy Syracuse and making a leap from the West Coast, where he's lived for a very long time and has really enjoyed things out there and seemingly is in his dream job right now at Stanford, to go to a peer school in the ACC. But this is a name that I think is one of the best college basketball coaches out there right now. And I bring him up almost to highlight, too, that NIL and resources really do matter in the conversation of how likely are you to win at said school. Kyle Smith, if he was at a top school in the country right now, I firmly believe would be on the list of top 5, top 10 coaches in the sport. If he was like Todd Golden at Florida right now, where they have resources, I think he could win a national championship. He's that good of a coach. And he is known for really being innovative and changing the way that people view basketball from a statistical standpoint. He's basically Moneyball of college basketball. Nerdball is what people use as a way to describe his style. He came up with hustle stats and really changed the way that people think about college basketball from an analytical perspective. And Todd Golden has won at Florida with that style. So if you're talking about how could Syracuse do more with less, Kyle Smith is known for that. At Washington State, at Columbia, at San Francisco, he has been a tremendous program builder. I think he'll do a good job at Stanford. He's off to a good start there. He's known for identifying guys in the portal that are undervalued because of how much he leans into the numbers, and he plays the money ball game. It's unlikely. I would be pretty shocked if he even entertained the Syracuse job, considering I'm someone that has made the trip from Syracuse to Stanford and then had to get on the plane with the women's basketball team and make that trip back to Syracuse. And I don't know why he would be that interested in leaving the West Coast and leaving Stanford, which he has called his dream job. But that's a name that's not out there at all. And I would give him a call because in the type of things that I'm looking for, he checks all those boxes. He is an incredible program builder, and I would like to see an analytically driven mind come into Syracuse as their next head coach. I would like to see someone that plays the style of offense like Kyle Smith. That's that kind of European style, that 4 out, 1 in, 5 out style of offense. Josh Schertz does that as well. So that's a name that no one is throwing out there. Could he leave for a bigger job at some point? Maybe. I don't know if Syracuse is necessarily the right job for him, but I would definitely pick up the phone and give Kyle Smith a call. And he is a perfect example of someone that is a terrific coach that just doesn't really have the NIL resources at Stanford for us to realize just how good of a coach he is. We'll hit our first time out. That's our Burdick BMW of Cicero opening drive. We'll open up the phone lines. I do realize I have 3 more coaches to get to. You guys can probably guess the names. I'll organize them in the order that I see fit, and we'll do that as we return. We'll talk about the pros and cons for my final 3 candidates on our Top 5 Tuesday on a Thursday, and we can work in your phone calls as well at 315-437-7644. We're back with more Drive Time. Yeah, Philly, I don't know what you're talking about there. That's just what coaches refer to it as. European offensive, spread it out, 5 out, running more plays. I mean, it's kind of what we talked about with Sophie Burrows, actually, yesterday a little bit. He gets on base. We got Cart coming on Orange Nation tomorrow for the B. Bixie was asking about Lax. Yeah, big win for USA. What else am I missing in the chat? Yeah, it does seem like a lot of these coaches, same with Schertz, into the threes and rims too. Hamilton College, shout out. You've heard enough, hire him? It's very unlikely. Who do you think's far better, San Diego Cuse, than GMAC, Hop, or Hart? You going to say Schertz and Hodgson? You don't think the Stanford campus is beautiful? That's a hot take, Super Cat. Maybe you're joking. Philly, I'm not saying he's that realistic, but I'm going to bring up his name. And how do we know for sure that he's not coming, you know? Ted Cooley. That'd be wild. How about Mick Cronin? Would you guys be interested in that? After the year he's had, he's got such a big buyout, it probably would never happen. I don't think he's going to get fired. But maybe he looks for like a softer landing, although he'd be swallowing his buyout. I don't think as it stands right now that SU has a chance, but if SU made the decision to pay way more or really empty the checkbook, then sure. I mean, Brendan Marks was on our show, and he was like, I don't see why Syracuse wouldn't be in the running. It's going to be one of the top jobs this year, potentially, and he's looking to make a leap this year, you would think. He could just sit back and wait for one more year. Yeah, he also didn't even play William Kyle. It seems like a mess. That would be interesting. It'd be like Boeheim all over again, the press conferences.
Watch your favorite ESPN Syracuse sports talk shows on QSportsTalk.com.
Rolling along on a Thursday evening drive time. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in. That's for ESPN 44. We continue my countdown, my top 5 Tuesday on a Thursday. My countdown of the 5 top candidates right now to replace Adrian Autry, if it comes to that, for Syracuse men's basketball. Number 5 and number 4, I have revealed. This is not most likely. This is in the realistic candidates category to some extent, who are my top 5 right now that I would at least pick up the phone and entertain the conversation and try and get an interview with for sure. And I put Jerry McNamara number 5. I put Kyle Smith, the current Stanford head coach, number 4, because I think very highly of him, and I think it'd be worth at least a phone call. Now we get to number 3.
Number 3.
This is where we get to Mike Hopkins, another in-family candidate here that I'm sure is going to lead to people swerving in their car or people pumping their fist and nothing in between. It feels like you can't be in the middle ground on this one, on Mike Hopkins or Jerry McNamara. And I actually feel like I sort of sit in the middle ground on this one. My stance on Hop is, if it comes to him and if he is your best candidate, I think that would be a very solid hire. And I think that we have to be realistic to some extent about what is Syracuse basketball right now and what are the uniqueness or the unique things about the Syracuse basketball job. And Mike Hopkins knows all of that. He's seen it firsthand. And if he is interested in the job, I think, like we talked about with Jerry McNamara, there are a lot of pros there from an NIL booster standpoint. How about from a standpoint of Carmelo Anthony's son is on the team, and I'm sure Carmelo Anthony would probably love to have his son coached by Mike Hopkins or Jerry McNamara, and it's maybe more likely that Kiyan Anthony stays. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I think it would be fair to say it's more likely he stays if Carmelo Anthony sees that Mike Hopkins or Jerry McNamara is the next head coach at Syracuse. So there's a lot of pros here with Mike Hopkins. The counter argument is, and someone called into Orange Nation earlier today and made the counter argument that he went to Washington and it didn't go well. And he was fired after 7 seasons. It started very well. He had a couple big-time recruits that became NBA players. Remember Isaiah Stewart from Rochester, who, if he had stayed at Syracuse, Mike Hopkins, maybe it's a different universe, and Isaiah Stewart went to Syracuse, and we're talking differently right now. But he went to Washington, and the first couple years were good. They only made it to the NCAA tournament once in his 7 seasons, though, and offensively, his teams typically lagged behind their defense. Remember, they started playing zone. They kind of waffled away from that at times. But all in all, it wasn't a disaster at Washington. It wasn't like, oh, I'd never even contemplate giving this guy a second chance at being a head coach anywhere. Far from it. He was the Pac-12 Coach of the Year his first year. It fizzled specifically after COVID for them. And I do think that there's a strong case that if Mike Hopkins was recruiting on the East Coast, where he is incredibly well connected in all of the regions that Syracuse needs to be well connected in, and he is someone that is a fabulous recruiter and a fabulous motivator, I think he would do better at Syracuse than he did at Washington. And I don't really understand, same conversation as we had with GMAC, and we'll get to those of you calling in right now, 315-437-7644, if you'd like to chime in. I don't really understand if you thought that the downfall of the program for Syracuse is the idea that Jim Boeheim stayed too long, and instead of going to Mike Hopkins when they should have, Jim Boeheim wanted to coach his sons, and that's why we're in the position we're in today. That's the biggest reason. Well, clearly you thought Mike Hopkins was a good coach at that point, if you feel that way, or at least that would line up in my head. So if you felt that way then, why are you turned off to the idea of Mike Hopkins now, after he's gone out and gotten head coaching experience and also become an NBA assistant, which I think adds a nice wrinkle for recruits? And I think he would do a tremendous job recruiting and selling Syracuse, and I think he would raise money NIL-wise. He's not my top candidate, but I think it's fair to say that he should be among the top 5 in terms of what John Wildtack or the future athletic director that fills in for John Wildtack is looking at right now. I would definitely give him a call. I have not heard anyone say a bad word about Mike Hopkins in my time here at Syracuse. That brings me to number 2.
Number 2.
I have heard people say bad words and good words on this guy. Brian Hodgson is number 2 for me. From South Florida, he gets brought up a lot. It's very clear, if we're reading between the lines, that it seems like there is interest here in Brian Hodgson going to Syracuse. He has some New York roots. The Lallies, he has a relationship with, apparently. Apparently they give to NIL for him down in South Florida. It seems like they would give, obviously, to him at Syracuse, and the Lallies are already giving, so you can make a case, is that much of an enhancer? But Brian Hodgson is a name that is polarizing to some extent. You hear some weird stuff about him. You hear that he's just a different personality. And it feels like in the chat, there are 5 of you that really like this idea. There are 5 of you that really don't like it. He's doing a very nice job at South Florida in his first season. We'll table that conversation for a second. Let's get to the phone lines. We got Steve in Liverpool leading us off today. Hey, Steve.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Let me ask you a question.
Absolutely.
What head coach would want to come to Syracuse to be scrutinized by social media? You already got a head coach, game play out, but you're talking about people that would love to come to Syracuse?
Well, Mike Hopkins and Jerry McNamara, I'm sure, would be interested, right?
No. Mike Hopkins lost to Indiana by 21 points. He's still early in his career as a head coach. Same thing with Mike Hopkins.
No, you're thinking about GMAC there. Mike Hopkins went to Washington.
No, I'm talking about Hopkins. Hopkins lost at Washington, okay?
Okay. You said Indiana. That was
what I'm
Siena.
saying is, Siena lost to Indiana.
Right.
The point is, no head coach would want to come to Syracuse under the scrutiny. You let the Hall of Fame coach go after 47 years.
You really think they're just not no one's going to be interested in the job at Syracuse?
The ones you're talking about, no.
Brian Hodgson is, if you're reading between the lines, Steve, it seems like he's getting his name out there already. Reporters are bringing up his name specifically. He has a relationship with some of Syracuse's top donors. He's from New York. I think it's pretty fair to say he's interested in the job.
And guess what? After 1 year, 2 years, you want to get rid of him.
Well, that you might be right about that, and maybe his opinion changes when he comes on campus, but... And I understand what you're getting at, that it's a tough place to win right now. The fan base is obviously going to be very hard on the next head coach, and that's something that these coaches will consider for sure, but it's still rated as the 6th best job in the ACC. They're going to get some looks. They're going to get some interest. It's still Syracuse basketball, and I'm sure that the athletic department understands that this is a very important hire, and they're going to do what they can to hire the best coach.
Yes. I think you need to talk to Mike Tirico, who's on that committee for the next AD, because never have I ever heard a fan base put their coach down the way I've seen it in recent years. The point is, you let the season play out. 4 years ago, 2022, they supposedly weren't going to make the tournament. They made the Sweet 16, losing to Houston. That's all.
I agree with you on that point. I wish the fan base. Yeah, I wish the fan base. We can be arguing the same stuff here, I think. I wish the fan base was a little bit more polite to the head coach and just treated him a little bit better. But
I'm the fan base. I just renewed my tickets for my 47th year, okay? So when I hear a student body say, fire Autry, that's disrespectful. I'm sorry.
All right. I appreciate you checking in, Steve. And I understand what he's getting at, and I appreciate him calling in, and I appreciate him being a loyal Syracuse follower and being just a good human being and not wanting to personally attack the head coach like you see out there from some of the social media crowd and some of the social media keyboard warriors of sorts. I still think that Steve's wrong to say no one would be interested in this job because of that. There are a lot of fan bases that are crazy in college basketball. There are a lot of fan bases that now, with the access of social media and the ability to make comments online, there would be scrutiny, there would be pressure, and there would be a lot of chatter about how good the head coach is from the moment they took a big job. Right now at UNC, it seems like there's a portion of their fan base that wants Hubert Davis out. Right now at Kentucky, everyone is down on the idea of Mark Pope. And Mark Pope is dealing with a lot of scrutiny and I'm sure a lot of questionable comments online. So, yes, Syracuse does feel like at times it's gotten very toxic. It's gotten very negative. I'm usually the person that is in total agreement with someone that calls in and brings up that point. And I'm not disagreeing with that side of it on the conversation with Steve, but Brian Hodgson is interested in this job, it seems like. There are going to be people that are interested in this job that are good coaches. And Mike Hopkins and Jerry McNamara, I'm guessing, are interested in this job. I would be surprised to find out that of the names I've gone through so far, 3 of the 4 would not be interested. GMAC, Hopkins, and Hodgson. Kyle Smith, I said point blank, that's just a wild card name I threw into the conversation that I don't think would be very interested in this job. So Brian Hodgson at number 2. We spoiled this yesterday, but number 1 is Josh Schertz for me. And Josh Schertz falls in the category of someone I'm not very confident would be interested in this job. But Josh Schertz is at the top of the list for everyone, and I understand why he's at the top of the list. There's a great profile on The Athletic from a couple years ago. CJ Moore wrote it on Josh Schertz and his upbringing and how he's kind of worked his way up through the lower levels. And I am always very intrigued by someone who started D3, D2, and has gotten to a level where now they are thought of as one of the top candidates for a power conference job this offseason. I've talked about this with the lacrosse assistant coaches, with John O'Derna and Pat March, and how they have made their way up from the Division III ranks. I think that's always a really good indicator that means they are a very strong mind, very strong in that sport. And it's very clear that Josh Schertz is a tremendous mind. Now, the conversation of how well would Josh Schertz do at Syracuse, how well would Brian Hodgson do at Syracuse, is a totally separate conversation that I think is worth having, because a lot of the coaches that get brought up online or on the phone lines here are considered tremendous offensive minds, and they have really stood out at the lower levels for how good they are at calling plays and having a great innovative offense. And it is much tougher to stand out as an offensive coach at the power conference level than the lower levels. I think we've seen examples where it has translated and it's been a success story. And I think Nate Oates is a good example of that, and Pat Kelsey comes to mind, and some of these forward-thinking coaches. And I think Josh Schertz could be one of those success stories for sure. And that's why he's going to be very highly sought after, and it's going to take raising the Syracuse salary for the head coaching position quite a bit, I would have to imagine, to get someone like Josh Schertz. So it's not very likely, but he still is my top candidate. Let's go to Vito and Clay, who is next up on the phone line. Say, Vito.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I listened to the last caller. I got a lot of mixed emotions about his thoughts and saying that it's disrespectful for the fans to voice their opinion during games, fire archery. But you know what? This is not Georgia Tech. This is not Wake Forest. This is not Providence. This is Syracuse, and the fans are fed up. It's been a decade now where we're not double-digit losses. You don't see any. My biggest thing is there's no player development. If you look at JJ, his shot was smooth his freshman year. I know he had the shoulder issue and surgery, but he developed a hitch since he's come to Syracuse, and he can't shoot as well, and he should be nailing threes at a 40% plus clip, and he's not. There's been no development with him. Donnie he's had a lot of good games this year, but in these games where they play tough or bigger opponents, he does not show up, and I don't see any development with him. I've seen Nate George get a little better this season, but he made a lot of mistakes throughout a lot of the season that weren't corrected. And then you see another evidence of poor coaching also is the fact that they played good all the way up to halftime, only to get out-coached in the second half. So if people want to voice their displeasure, I think the best way to do it is through the pocket. But a lot of people are tired of it, and they have every right to voice it at the games.
Yeah, I think that's all fair, Vito. I talked about that some throughout the week, that it's frustrating that they were right there with Houston, and now it feels like they are really far away from being competitive with one of the top teams in the country. And obviously Duke is beating a lot of teams by a significant margin, but it's not acceptable to lose by 37, of course. And it's not just Duke. They've gotten blown out by several teams this year. When we made the point, a lot of us did in the preseason, that this team is talented enough to be competitive in every game, and they won't get run out of the gym. And then here we are seeing that happen, and it does feel like they have not developed enough, and the coaches aren't getting enough out of this group. So I hear you on all of that. There are some examples of success stories in terms of, like, William Kyle goes from not playing at all under Mick Cronin, and now he is one of the better bigs Syracuse has had in a little bit, and he gives you something from a defensive perspective that is really nice. So I think you're spot on, though, that is maybe the most frustrating part right now is the player development.
Right, and I'll tell you, last night I watched the Creighton-UConn game, which was a great game.
Yeah. And
you just see the disparity in talent. And I know there's NIL now. I get all that. But how long has it been since you had a center? I mean, if you watch Donnie and Kyle, I don't know if Donnie was on Boozer, but you actually saw, I haven't seen this in a while, you saw Kyle run into Boozer to stop him from backing him down. He doesn't have the weight. We haven't had a center with weight that can stop, the back to the basket game of guys like that. And they just get right to the hoop easily. It just hasn't brought the talent in. But that game last night was phenomenal. I thought Creighton played an amazing game to knock out UConn at home. And as an SU fan, I just want to see UConn lose every game. So that was nice.
All right, Vito, thanks for checking in. Good stuff. That's Vito and Clay. So we'll table that for now, and I'll get to some of the honorable mentions. There's a lot of people in the chat bringing up Jared Calhoun. He's certainly an honorable mention for me. We can talk about some more of the coaching candidates that I kind of wrote down that didn't quite crack my top five, and some that I would still file in the category of if you don't get calls back or you don't get an answer that you want from a Josh Schertz, a Mike Hopkins, a Brian Hodgson, then you're looking further down the list. And honestly, you probably start out by giving calls to a wide net, and then from there you narrow it down through the interview process, ideally. So we'll get into some more names as we continue, and we can take more of your phone calls as well at 315-437-7644. We're back with more Drive Time.
Did you miss Drive Time?
Where is Troy Weaver right now, Ryan? Is he still in the NBA? I'm not really even sure. Yeah, Jared Calhoun for sure, San Diego Cuse. He was probably like number 6 for me. I just kind of wanted to bring up Kyle Smith more than anything. Yeah, getting top talent is more important than a coach bowling ball. And no one wants to hear that, but I agree with you. What did I say, Eslo? You're saying lower levels at basketball schools for sure. It's a very important distinction. Meaning like he was at schools that could succeed. The school that Lincoln Memorial, the D2 school, was known for being like one of the toughest D2 jobs, and he succeeded there. But I'm not sure what you're getting at. Yeah, there's a lot of toxic fan bases out there. NC State's a good example. I understand why Steve probably thinks it's like disrespectful a little bit. I mean, I get that with Autry being an alum and you see some of the stuff out there, but I don't think they need to worry too much about. I don't think the next coach is going to be like, oh, this is too negative of a fan base. It might factor in slightly, but I don't think that it's a huge issue. San Diego Cuse was responding to my Hopkins question. Catching up here. His offense struggled mightily. He also went 15. Yeah, the offense is concerning for sure because low assist numbers. They just haven't been a very good offensive team. But what if Brian Hodgson gets a better offer and Josh Schertz gets a better offer? Do you just keep going for mid-major candidates? I can't remember all of you guys. Like in the case of San Diego Cuse, maybe you're out on one of them or in on one of them. But that's why it's worth talking about Mike Hopkins and GMAC because I think they're in the top 5 for me. I mean, I just said that, but I think they should be in the top 5 for most people. And maybe that's totally out of bounds in some people's thoughts. Yeah, JJ was never going to be a 40% three-point shooter, but I don't know what happened to him exactly. It's frustrating, but it's almost like you can't put all of it on the coaches with how bad his shot's gotten. That's well said, Jen. The way he has been treated by some fans is completely unacceptable. Yeah, the point of the center, a lot of times you're recruiting a center that can get out to the corner and in the zone. So now that they're in a different position, I mean, I was going to bring up Eddie Lampkin. Lampkin had about as much mass as anyone last year, but Vito probably would have just said, well, take him out of the equation. He didn't work, which is why I didn't really even bother. Yeah, I don't think Adam Weitzman or Mello are going to be the next AD. Yeah, Brian Dutcher's a good call. Boeheim's outcoached him several times, but he's done a good job at San Diego State. Only issue with some of those people, like Jared Calhoun even, they're kind of just like West Coast based, and I don't know how likely it is. You know, that's what I was getting at with Kyle Smith some. Lampkin never used the backboard on any layups. Is it his first West Coast job? Maybe I'm thinking of the New Mexico guy I was looking at earlier, Eric Olin. Welcome back into Drive Time. Tim Leonard with you, 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in. Got some interesting callers already this afternoon for ESPN 44. Just went through my top 5 coaching candidates right now. If they do move on from Adrian Autry at the end of the year, who are the top 5 coaches I would give a call to? We started with Jerry McNamara at number 5. I am not one of these people that says you cannot hire in the family. You can't even entertain that idea. How dare you bring up his name? I would consider it. I would say GMAC is not at the top of my list, but GMAC is someone that I think highly of, and I think for a lot of reasons, his familiarity with Syracuse, he should be considered, and his ability to probably come in here and raise some NIL dollars. And at the end of the day, the most important factor probably in how successful Syracuse basketball will be in the next 10, 15 years is how much money do they have to spend on their roster. If we are trying to identify one thing right now that is most correlating with success in college basketball and college sports period, more so than it's ever been, now that we're in the age of NIL and pay-for-play and transfer portal, the biggest thing Syracuse can do to improve the basketball program is improve their resources for their roster. Be it through NIL, be it through allocating more money through the rev share. If their roster could double from what it was this year, that is the quickest way to have success right now. It does not guarantee success. Kentucky is a prime example of that. But there are plenty of programs in football, in basketball, in baseball, whatever you want to look at in terms of a college sport right now, that have become more of a juggernaut because of this day and age. And there are plenty of programs that are struggling because of this day and age in college athletics. And Syracuse, I would fit in the category of a program that is struggling, partially because they were late to the game to NIL. It's one factor for sure, and it probably is the biggest correlation in will Syracuse basketball succeed in the next 10 to 15 years. Put it this way, I don't really see a world where Syracuse basketball is at a level where the fan base is happy, which that might never be possible, period. So maybe I'll rephrase it differently. I don't see a world where Syracuse basketball is making the tournament every single year again and being ranked occasionally and being in the top 6, top 7 of the ACC consistently, unless they have seen an improvement in their resources. Now, we don't have full transparency on where they stand exactly and where they stood last year and where they stood 5 years ago or when NIL first started, but it feels like there's no world where Syracuse does not improve if the NIL doesn't improve partially or keep pace or continue to catch up from being behind, maybe is a better way to phrase it. Syracuse could hire the right coach, and maybe Adrian Autry was a better coach than we thought or we're thinking right now. But if you don't have the resources in place, then you really don't stand a chance. And we saw that more specifically last year. Of course, this year, different story, and we've talked about that a lot. So that's what every coach is focused on, and that's what every coach is going to consider that is looking for any job in this coaching carousel. And that's what Josh Schertz, I'm sure, cares about a lot, who is my top candidate. I mentioned GMAC was 5. I threw out Kyle Smith of Stanford at number 4, which is very unlikely that he would bolt from his dream job, which is in sunny Stanford, and make his way all the way to where down the road from where he played his college basketball at Hamilton College to snowy Syracuse. But Stanford's not a very easy place to win. And even though he's a tremendous head coach, he's not winning to the degree that he gets a lot of accolades because of the resources. So if you had a really good coach and good resources, of course, you're in a good spot. The case that I make a lot, and I've never once said that Adrian Autry is the best coach or was the right hire or any of that stuff. And clearly this year is proving that things are not going well and maybe never would have gone well with Coach Autry. We don't really know. But the point that I do make a lot is I'm not sure any coach really would have succeeded that much in the last 3 years at Syracuse. given the resources and the changes in the college landscape. And when I say succeed, what I mean by that is to the degree that the fan base wants, or to the degree that the fan base expects from Syracuse, to get back to the level of what Syracuse was when they were really humming under Jim Boeheim. I think if they had gone out and they had hired Kyle Smith or Josh Schertz when Coach Boeheim's time was done and they moved on to Adrian Autry, if they had hired Mike Hopkins, Jerry McNamara, all of those guys might just be on the hot seat right now. If they had hired Brian Hodgson, which obviously it was a little premature to hire someone like that, but I don't know, Niko Medvedev was the name that everyone wanted last year. He's just doing kind of okay at Minnesota. They're sort of middle of the pack. So that's where it's a little unfair when you're taking personal shots at Coach Autry, because it's not like he was dealt a hand of pocket aces here. Far from it. He was behind the 8 ball, whatever expression you want to use, and he hasn't done good with that hand that he was dealt. And it could be that even if Coach Autry was dealt a good hand, he would have struggled. We don't really know. But I'm not sure that anyone would have turned whatever the equivalent poker hand is that Syracuse's head coach was given 3 years ago into a winner, or would have run the table at that point. Some honorable mention names that I was going to get to. Tell you what, we'll work in another break, and if you'd like to call in, you can, and then I will get to those names on the other side. Jared Calhoun has been brought up in the chat. I'll talk about him. He was certainly on my list and did not quite crack my top 5. There's a couple other names that probably fall in the category of Kyle Smith that I have not really seen brought up very much, but I was trying to kind of do some digging on names elsewhere, because right now it feels like all of the conversation is Hodgson or Schertz. And to that I would say, what if both of those coaches don't come to Syracuse? What if Brian Hodgson finds a better job out there? And it does seem like he's very interested in the Syracuse job. I understand that. Josh Schertz, by all accounts, I don't know, but it does not feel very realistic to me. He's my top name, but I don't think it's very realistic that he would go to Syracuse. So we have to at least open the conversation to more than just 2 names. And that's, of course, what Syracuse is doing right now. I'm sure if they are back channeling and starting to think about the next head coach, which I'm sure they are probably doing given how things are looking at the minute. 315-437-7644 if you'd like to call in. We're back with more Drive Time.
Check out
Jay Wright, pick up the phone. He'd tell you no, probably, but you can pick up the phone. Oh, the YouTube chat. I forgot about the YouTube chat. How we doing? Nick in the YouTube chat. I think there was someone in the YouTube chat yesterday that I saw right as I closed the show. They said, sorry for your loss. So I appreciate you guys. I'm bad about the YouTube chat. Call me Steve. A lot of chatter in here. Third Eye Blind, barbecue ribs. We're all over the map. I should probably check it out more. Yeah, Mark Few. Sure. Give him a call. Coach K did have probably a worse start than Autry, you're right. Actually, really, a lot of these coaches have bad starts when you think about it. Brad Brownell was hated. Ray Rice getting brought up in the YouTube chat. It's a wild place here. Jordan asking about my Chinese food order. He probably ordered this 20 minutes ago. Big orange chicken guy, Jordan. Hopefully you agree with me. F the YouTube chat, says the Twitch chat. The rivalry continues. Yeah, Jen, that's probably a fair take. The AD was a full year behind with NIL. Well said, Philly. Maybe he will rebound and do well. That would be lovely. If any coach could take the job, I would sign up for that right now. Between 4 to 6 in the league, Philly says, with an outlier year here or there. That seems like kind of the ceiling as things stand currently. I would run for the hills if someone said that. Interesting is a kind way of putting those calls, Tim. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Red's a good coach, far from it, but all I was saying is if they had hired outside the family, inside the family, I don't know if it would have mattered a ton. If you told me right now they could hire behind door A is a coach that is okay, because you're not going to hire like a bad coach, I don't think. But let's say behind door A is a coach that is okay, but they raise the NIL. And behind door B is a coach that is great, but the NIL stays the same. I think I would take NIL raising. Yeah, Philly, but who's to say that they're going to have $3 more million for the next head coach? If you're saying that, then the ceiling changes, right? The expectations and all that. I think we're in agreement. No need to say, come on now at me. Just joking. Coach Carter, yeah, that'd be a good hire. Samuel L. Jackson, sure. I think coaches like Matt Rule and Kirby Smart, and a lot of coaches advocated for him. That's why John Wildcat gave him the job. Nick Saban met with him. I mean, I think he's pretty well liked. I don't think it's that, Philly. I don't think it's all that. Will the new coach get more money? Probably, yes. But I don't think it's because they don't like Red that the NIL is struggling, or was. Final segment here on Drive Time. We might go into the second hour. We were abbreviated yesterday, so we're making up for lost time here. 315-437-7644 if you want to push us into overtime. If you want to get in your thoughts on any of what I've discussed so far, the coaching search that seems inevitable for Syracuse basketball. Let's hope it's not inevitable, but if it's not inevitable, that means that they have probably gone on a miraculous run and won the ACC tournament and extended Coach Autry's tenure. And some of you would probably say, oh, no, that's the worst outcome possible. That's like Kevin Keatts at NC State. But Kevin Keatts only lasted one more year after that. I'm still kind of lost on people that are rooting against the team right now. I just posed the question in the chat before I get to some of the honorable mentions. If you had to select one door A or door B, door A is Syracuse hires, an impossible question here, but Syracuse hires an okay head coach next, but they enhance their NIL and budget a decent amount. That's door A. They hire an okay head coach, but their NIL and budget gets raised a decent amount. Door B is they hire a great head coach, but the NIL and budget stays the same. What door would you open? What door would be more favorable for the next 5, 10, 15 years for Syracuse basketball? I think I would open door A. Might be in the minority there, but I laid out how I think Kyle Smith is one of the best coaches in the sport, and I think he's so forward-thinking. He's doing everything right, and he's basically playing money ball at Stanford, and Stanford's right around Syracuse in the rankings. Stanford's a very tough place to win. I think there are plenty of examples. Some of the honorable mention names I have here I was going to throw out, just because these names haven't been brought up. Again, I don't think they're very likely, but how about Steve Forbes at Wake Forest? He's definitely had some more mixed reviews lately, but that's an example of a coach that seemingly is very good. People think very highly of him in the industry, but he has not really had the resources. Phone line's ringing here, so we'll get to you, and we'll go overtime if you'd like. 315-437-7644. Mike Young at Virginia Tech, they finally improved their NIL this year, Virginia Tech, and they're doing better. I'm not sure he would jump necessarily to a bigger job this year after Virginia Tech has improved their NIL. Looks like we missed the caller. If you want to call back, you can, and I'll hang on for a little bit as I go through some of the honorable mention names. So that's the conversation I bring up. Now, there are plenty of examples, too, of the NIL is good, and you don't have the right coach, and it's not the right mix. And you look at Kentucky right now, they seem to have all the money in the world, and they're not playing to the standard that Kentucky fans want. Mark Pope did a good job at BYU. I don't know if he's necessarily a bad coach. There are also just some years where it doesn't work out. Shaka Smart has had a bad year. Mick Cronin's having a pretty bad year, and he's had some years that are terrible. He's also had a year where he took UCLA to the Final Four. So that's part of the conversation, too. A couple other names to bring up. How about Phil Martelli Jr.? In his first year at VCU, did a great job at Bryant. Son of the longtime St. Joe's coach. Is that a name that you guys would be interested in? Casey Alexander is kind of one of those hotshot young offensive minds from Belmont. I wrote him down. Jared Calhoun, we mentioned earlier, from Utah State. And one more name that I haven't really seen anywhere. I think Bill Armstrong is maybe a year away from taking a big job. He's the McNeese State head coach, and he's done a really good job in the first year at McNeese. I mean, certainly Will Wade left it in a good spot, but he was a Baylor assistant. He's known for being a defensive-minded coach, so I just threw him in there as a different option. Tony Skinn of George Mason gets brought up a lot online as well. Armstrong is a defensive guru, basically. They're leading the country in turnover margin. So if you're trying to think about how can Syracuse get back to the glory days, running gun and getting steals and blocks and athletes, it seems like that would fit the mold of what Bill Armstrong is trying to do. But he's only in his first year at McNeese State, so he didn't crack my top five. Let's go to the phone lines. We got Mike in Rochester, who is rounding out the show today. Hey, Mike.
Hi, how you doing, Tim?
Doing well.
No longer in Bradenton, Florida.
I'm sorry to hear that. No more golf for you?
Well, I came up to see Jimmy Lee and Rudy
that's right.
get their numbers, and I'm going back Sunday. But anyway, watching the show on the YouTube and listening, of course, I think I know that door number one with a great coach doesn't seem as attractive maybe as the money. But I think if you get the coach who, again, wins the press conferences, has the PR, and can really coach a basketball team, the money comes in.
Yep.
What I'm hearing, and I talk to some people who give money, and they're frustrated when they pay a lot of money for a player that doesn't work out and on a team that's not winning. And I think you have to have that. You might get 1 year of money, and then if you don't win, if you don't have that coach that people are really loving and thinking great things about, those people are going to stop giving. They just are not going to bang their heads against the wall, So I really think you got to get a coach. You got to get somebody who, and of course, we still have a coach, so I feel sort of bad about talking this way. But I think we see the outcome. We know where this is going. And what frustrates me is you watch Syracuse basketball play SMU, and they're moving the ball, and they're hitting shots, and they're doing everything. And the next game, they don't do it. I don't understand that. Like if you have a system and a coach is coaching a system, it looks the same. I mean, it looks consistent, and we just haven't had any of that. That's where I think coaches, unfortunately, I don't know if it's because you got a whole new team, you don't know the guys, you didn't raise them yourself, but other schools are doing it.
Yeah.
So I think we need that guy. And then I think there's enough donors affiliated with Syracuse that they'll give the money. They want to win.
Yeah, tremendous call, Mike, as always. I appreciate you finishing off the show with a really good phone call there. That's Mike in Rochester. he's spot on. This is a nuanced conversation, and any new coach is probably going to bring in a boost in NIL to some extent right off the bat. And Coach Autry, at this point, there's some fatigue, I'm sure, with the donors that why would they keep donating to this guy? So they will light up probably at the opportunity to donate to something that has newfound optimism, newfound hope, and hopefully there will be some of that momentum we saw when Syracuse made the switch to Fran Brown. I think you're guaranteed to get a boost in NIL to some extent and a boost in donations and resources to some extent if/when they move on from Adrian Autry. But the school also has a pretty big factor in making sure that they are going about it the right way. They're doing all they can to get to a spot from an NIL standpoint where they're embracing it. And in order to get that next head coach that is a proven winner and is what the fan base wants and is going to lead to the NIL donations going up, you might have to spend a good bit more on the next head coach than you have recently here at Syracuse. If it's truly someone, I mean, I hear some people call in and it's like it's a laundry list of things that they want from the next head coach. It's someone that has the personality, the charisma. It's someone that's a proven winner, not an assistant. It's someone that is a great offensive mind. And that's where I bring up a name like Mike Hopkins. He's not a perfect candidate. No one's really going to be a perfect candidate. Jay Wright isn't out there right now, most likely. I mean, you can try and pick up the phone and try and see if he wants to answer, but I don't think Jay Wright is coming to Syracuse. So knowing that, there's going to be probably some flaws in the next candidate to some extent, and you've got to identify what are the big strengths we're looking for, and if there's a weakness, what are the weaknesses that we can live with, and what are we prioritizing? And that's kind of what we're having here as a conversation. Really good call from Mike all around. I agree with pretty much everything he said there, and I think he's right that when I lay out that question of door A, door B, it's an impossible question. It's nuanced. There's more conversation to be had off of that question. And I do understand the point for sure, and I think it's a valid point, that if you win, that's going to lead to more donations. I also think that resources coming before the winning will really help the winning, and that's why I'm having that conversation a lot over the last couple weeks on this show. That'll be that for Drive Time this afternoon. We'll have Shai Hawkins on the show tomorrow, one of the Orange women's basketball starting wings, and she hit the game-winning free throws against Clemson on Sunday. The Cuse women's basketball team will be on the road Sunday at NC State for a very big game, so we'll chat with Shai Hawkins tomorrow. Paul Carcaterra is booked for Orange Nation tomorrow. And remember, the Adrian Autry show tonight is live from the Wildcat Pizza Pub. That is on TK99. That's on the Syracuse Sports Network through Learfield. And Donnie Freeman will be out there as well, I hear. He's at all of the shows for the month of February. So if you want to go out and chat with Coach Autry, chat with Donnie Freeman, you can go to Wildcat in Camillus tonight. That's that for Drive Time. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Key Sports Talk and ESPN Radio.
Did you miss Drive?
ACC Player of the Week. And if you are